Getting to the heart of the matter. Back to Guy, Ben, and Frank with more Inside the News.
Welcome back to our second segment of Inside the News. We almost didn't even get this segment off because we had such a great discussion that lasted longer than the commercial break. So we had to go back and restart tape, believe it or not. Ben Brunson, Frank Vernuccio, myself, Guy Wehman. Let's talk about what's going on with Fauci in China and what is going on there with the virus. Ben, go.
Well, you know, Anthony Fauci is becoming a truly disappointing figure. Very scary. I don't want to play psychologist, but I will. The guy has a Napoleon complex, and he's thoroughly into his role, his power-hungry role. The number of errors that you can trace back to Anthony Fauci over the last year, the number of times has been wrong. But the one thing that is very clear is his power megalomania was held in check under the Trump administration, and it is no longer held in check. So you have a guy who essentially wants to see perpetual lockdowns, perpetual government control, more and more government control. And that seems to be his motivating factor. He wants to play nice. He wants to be welcome into the global community once again, because that evil Donald Trump wouldn't let him be a friend to the World Health Organization, and which means cuddling up to the Chinese who control the World Health Organization. And make no mistake, if you're in the WHO and you want to go anywhere other than out the door, you have to abide by what China wants to hear from you. And Fauci is fully into that game right now and following that very path. So the sooner Fauci becomes part of our history, the better off this country will be.
A person who was very much in the limelight, who has tried to sneak out the back door and not be seen again, is Deborah Birx. She fully bought into the University of Washington, their whole scheme, the Bill Gates scheme. Yes, that's what it was. It was a scheme. And she was up there touting all this research that we're all going to be dead and all these millions and everything. And Frank, you're up there, and New York State got hit with a lot of stuff. And Cuomo, he's got some problems too.
Well, bluntly, Governor Andrew Cuomo has become, unintentionally perhaps, but in reality, yes, the largest mass murderer in the history of the United States. His problems with the distribution of the vaccine, his decision to put COVID patients in nursing homes resulted in the death of at least 6,000 people who didn't need to die. The problems continue. While New York State has received a lot of vaccine in the past few weeks, the intention of the governor to distribute it along politically correct lines has resulted in the fact that some vaccines have become so old that they're not useful at all. As a result, New York State really has a problem. It simply has been a disaster in vaccine distribution. It is probably the most astute lesson in political correctness and how it can cause disaster that we have seen yet. The governor has said that he wants to have an equitable distribution of the vaccine. And this means equitable rather than a practical. So, for example, in New York City, police who are on the front line of just about everything are still waiting to get vaccines. The governor has said that he wants to make sure that Black and Latino communities get it before anybody else. So we're seeing a political distribution of medical care, which is a complete disaster.
Okay, we're trying to, well, we're not trying. We're actually watching this diversion tactic because a lot of focus has been on China, but now they're starting to push the Russia thing again, Ben.
Well, look, there is a clear desire on the part of the current State Department and Washington, D.C. to confront Vladimir Putin and his wrongdoings. And I have no problem with that. I actually agree with that. So I don't have an issue that they have called out Putin on his arrest of Navalny, who was arrested on his return back to Russia. There are tens of thousands of Russians who have taken to the street to protest the arrest of Alexander Navalny, who's the leading opponent to Vladimir Putin. And of course, we know what happens to Vladimir Putin's outspoken opponents. They eventually wind up getting killed. And that wouldn't shock me if that's in Navalny's future. So he's a very, very brave, courageous man to have returned to Moscow and face arrest the way he did. So I don't have an issue with that. But what is clear is that in elevating Russia, they are intentionally downplaying China. So the other rhetoric, the other side of the story, the flip side of this is that while we're confronting Putin, which is fine, we're downplaying the issues with China. And the confrontation with China that was central to the Trump administration's worldview and to its approach to global politics is now in reverse. And we're going to see, we still, it is a big question mark whether the fact that the Biden family, which has been bought and paid for by the Chinese, whether that is ultimately going to, how that's going to influence Joe Biden's policies toward China. The early returns are that we are going back to the world in which China is our great friend and we want to encourage their growth. And that's not a good sign.
I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, or Putin or Clinton, and it must be the dictators that if you disagree, you're dead, Frank.
Yeah. And by the way, Daria Novak, a Reagan-era State Department official, keeps a careful eye on the State Department website. And she noticed recently, and in fact, National Pulse magazine has done an article on this, that the threat from China has been downgraded on the State Department website. They no longer list the Chinese Communist Party as a serious threat. I guess that investment that China made in the Biden family is paying good dividends for them.
Oh, it must be. And you read the book Clinton Cash. Are we going to have another one by Schweitzer called Biden Cash, Ben?
Oh, he's already Profiles in Corruption. His latest book already goes into great detail on the Biden family corruption and Kamala Harris's corruption and others. So all the evidence is there if you're willing to follow it. Peter Schweitzer is willing to do that. Great kudos to him. Unfortunately, no one at the DOJ is willing to do that as far as I can tell.
That's Ben Brunson. You can find Ben at benbrunson.com, amazon.com, the author of the Falstaff, Enigma, and Esther Sling. And Frank Vernuccio, he's with the American Analysis of News and Media. You can find him at usagovpolicy.com. He's also the voice of the Minute Report for America, but he's also here on Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio. AUN TV, we thank you. Radio affiliates, we thank you. We have to take a time out. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.